I want to talk today about how to recover from a setback that feels like a failure. Sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? Let's talk about failure. Are you in? I hope so. I hope so because none of us, I promise you, you cannot avoid failure. If you are trying to do things with your life in this world, I promise you it is going to happen. Okay. So that is the topic of our call today. How are you guys? Excited about talking about failure? I hope so. Let me know who's in the house. Who is in the house? So I want to tell you a story. I just not even an hour ago, I opened up my email to check on my email, and at the very top of the email there was a message from Facebook, and it said, "Your ad account has been disabled." And I was like, "What? Excuse me?" And I opened it. I thought, this is probably a spam. This is probably not true, right? This is a hacker. No, it's not a hacker. You open up the message and it says something like, you are basically, I read it. And the words that I heard was, "You're a terrible person and you should probably go to jail. And we have shut down your ad account." And I was like, oh my gosh. Now, if you don't have an online business, you might be like, so what? Like, who cares, right? But for me, this is where we get all of our new customers. All of them. All of you all have found me probably as a result of a Facebook ad, or maybe you saw a video, like on the page, but so many of you have found us through Facebook ads. Facebook ads have been a tremendous, engine for my business. This is why we reach the people that we do, because I put thousands. I've spent over $1 million just on Facebook ads over the past 7 years. It is a big deal. If I have no Facebook ads, I don't have new customers. At least this is what my brain is telling me. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So I feel terrible, right? I'm feeling like I'm a criminal. I did something wrong, right? Because Facebook is like, you violated our policies. And I'm like, oh, I did something wrong. And also, what does this mean for the business? Like, oh my gosh, how are we going to reach people? How are we going to find people? How are we, what is going to happen, right? So this is all the stuff that's going through my head, right? And I freaked out a little bit. I totally did. And I have a plan, and I do believe it's going to be fine, and we can handle this, right? But I tell you this story because I want you to know that failure is not something that you can avoid in this life, okay? If you're trying to avoid failure, or if you are not failing, if you do not have things that happen in your life that feel like failures, then you're probably not trying enough things. You're probably not thinking big enough. You're probably not stretching yourself. And we cannot avoid failure. And so what do we do about it? Well, it turns out I have a very specific strategy for how to handle failure. Okay? And I'm going to share that with you now. Does that sound good? You guys in? Everybody want to hear this? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if this is something that you could benefit from. What do you think? So the first thing that I want you to know, and we could be talking about you decluttered and you were really happy about the way the kitchen looks. And you're like, oh my gosh, I found the kitchen counter. I found the kitchen floor. And then a week later, it looks worse than ever, right? That probably feels like a failure. Or maybe you get rid of something and you think this was the right decision. And I'm so glad I did this. And then a week later or a month later, you discover, oh, I wish I hadn't gotten rid of that. Like somebody needed that, or I changed my mind. That could feel like a big fat failure, right? Like basically making mistakes feels like failure. Okay, so this can be little mistakes or it can be really big ones. It doesn't matter. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do when you are faced with a failure, number one, realize it's going to happen. It's not a question of if. Am I going to make a mistake? When is that? It's when. When am I going to make a mistake? Okay. And some of you are really unhappy with me right now, and I'm probably raising your anxiety, but stick with me because I promise you will come out on the other side. Okay. You are going to make mistakes. Facebook I was probably due to get shut down. Like, these things happen. This is so normal. It is so, so normal. And so let's not just kind of wait for the other shoe to drop and, think, I hope nothing bad happens. Like, don't go there, because I promise you'll be disappointed, right? So realize these things happen. We make mistakes. Facebook makes mistakes. I make mistakes. You're going to let something go and decide you want it. I promise you it will happen, right? So don't be surprised when it does. Okay, you just take some deep breaths, right? That's the first thing. It will happen sooner or later. Something's going to happen. Things come up. This is called life. Okay, that's the first thing. The next thing you want to do, one of my coaches and mentors talks about this. She says you want to normalize and neutralize. Okay, so normalize is kind of like this. These kinds of things happen. People do make mistakes. People's house, they declutter their houses, and then their kitchen gets messy. This is normal. If something is normal, nothing is wrong with you. You see how that works? If we think, oh my gosh, this shouldn't have happened, that kind of means something's wrong with me. Like, it shouldn't be this way, but that's not true, right? It is normal to make mistakes. It is normal to, to have regrets. These are normal things. And so if they're normal, it means nothing is wrong with you. And that is good news. We all want to know that, because the opposite of that is shame, right? If I think there's something wrong with me, I'm feeling shame. And I'm feeling like I want to hide. And that feels terrible, right? But when you realize, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. This is actually normal for these things to happen. Now I don't feel ashamed anymore. You see how that works? It's so powerful. It's such good news. And when we're not ashamed, then we don't struggle with anxiety. Okay. Neutralize. Okay. When we want to neutralize something, we can do it like this. Instead of going, my kitchen, I decluttered my kitchen. Now it's a mess again. And this means that, I just can't do this. This isn't for me. This means my family is against me. This means I should just give up. Right? This is kind of what our brains do. We like to catastrophize and we make things really big. But what you want to do is you want to neutralize it. You want to say, this doesn't mean that my family is against me. It doesn't mean that they hate me. It just means that we had a busy day. It just means there's 3 sweaters on the floor that need to get picked up or whatever. It just means there's some mail. Or, my husband left something lying around. It doesn't mean that he hates me. It really doesn't. It doesn't have to mean that. Okay, so when we neutralize it, we just look for the facts. What is actually happening here? Doesn't mean that I wasted all that time doing that work. It just means I got busy and now I got to get back to it. And actually, it might even be easier the second time around, right? You see how that works with neutralizing? You just can state the facts and say, what is this? What is really going on, right? Because we have the story in our heads, which is usually terrible and awful and makes us feel horrendous. And then there's the facts, which are usually very, very plain, very boring. And when we go to the facts and we neutralize, then like the pressure comes down, right? Like your blood pressure comes down, the temperature comes down, and we can be like, oh, okay. All right, that story I'm telling, I don't have to tell that story. Okay, so we want to normalize and we want to neutralize. All right. Then what I want you to know is, or what you to do next is realize it doesn't mean anything about you. Okay, you have your actions and you have the circumstances of what's happening in your world, and then you have you. Okay, and these are not the same thing. You are not the actions that you took. I am not my Facebook ad account. It doesn't make me a criminal because I violated their policy. It doesn't. It just means I violated the policy, and I'm not quite sure what I did. I have an idea, but I'm not sure. But I'm going to find out, right? But I need to have some separation, right? Because when I feel like this is a reflection of me, and this is like This means that, I'm a criminal, or if your kitchen gets messy, it means that you are a failure as a wife and a mother, or as a housekeeper or whatever. Like, then it's personal. But it doesn't need to be personal at all, ever. Okay? It's two separate things. You are you as a person, and there are the things that you do, the actions that you take, the way that your house looks. It doesn't have to be personal. Okay? And you can decide what story you want to tell. Now, your brain is going to want to tell the horrible story, the awful one. Our brains like to do that. It's looking out for danger. It's way more exciting to tell the awful story than it is to be like, oh, we just were busy yesterday. Like, that's super boring. And your brain isn't going to want to tell that story. But you might want to tell it, because that story will give you a little bit of peace, and you can actually do something when you're telling that story. You see how that works? Night and day. Okay, so you are not your failures, right? Those are just things that are happening in the world. And we really want to have a separation there. I think a lot of people really struggle with this, and this is why people get stuck. And this is why people just kind of sit around feeling sorry for themselves, because they're like, this is me. I am my house. Why can't I? And when you think basically that your house is just a reflection of you, then of course you feel terrible. And when you feel terrible, you don't want to clean it up and you don't want to do anything about it. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay. So you just want to realize it's not you. Okay. Really, really important. If you get nothing else from this talk today, I want you to realize that and know that you are not your house. You're not your stuff. I don't care what it looks like. It doesn't matter. That is separate from you. Okay. All right. Now, the next thing I want you to know is that successful people aren't without failure. Okay. And it's in any area of life. It can be in business. It can be in decluttering. It can be in raising kids. It can be in, having relationships, managing your money. The people that do well, the people that are successful, they are not the people that do not make mistakes. Okay? Let me say that again. Successful people are not successful because they're not making mistakes. Right? They're not successful in spite of their mistakes. So you might be like, well, thank goodness I only screwed up a couple times, right? I'm here now. No, that's not the way it works, actually. The way that it works is that you are successful because of your failures, because of your mistakes. You don't get to learn to ride the bike without falling down, right? Babies do not learn to walk without falling down. They have to fall down. They have to. If they never fall down, like if you always keep a baby from falling, it's going to have no muscles. It's going to have no strength. It's going to topple over as soon as you let go. And it's the same thing with decluttering, because we're the decluttering club. You will not be successful decluttering if you have no mistakes. That just means you're not doing it. That means you're not trying. You have to be willing to fall down. You have to be willing to let go of something and then feel bad about it next week. I promise you, that is the way to success. How crazy is that? That is the actual path, right? Your success in having your home feel good and amazing and loving where you live is going to be built on you. How quickly and how willing are you willing to have some mistakes and have some failures? Crazy, right? So it just blows my mind to think of this. Our success is built on all of the mistakes, because every time we make a mistake, guess what happens? We learn something. You don't learn when things are going well. Okay? If everything is amazing, you are not learning anything. We don't learn when we succeed. We learn when we fail. That's when all the learning happens. And so we got to keep failing. And ideally we fail faster and faster and faster, because then we will be getting to where we want to be that much quicker. Right? We have started something inside my company where we started a little channel, right? We have an app that we use to chat with each other. And now we have a channel called Celebrating Failure. We are going to go all in and go big on celebrating our mistakes, because I want people to know that it is not a bad thing to make a mistake. In fact, I want people making mistakes because that means they are trying stuff. That means they are stretching themselves. They're putting themselves in harm's way. If everybody is perfect all the time, then things are way too easy and we are missing the boat, right? So we celebrate this, and I'm leading the way because, if I don't lead the way, then how is anyone else going to follow me? So I'm totally leading the way in terms of like sharing. I tried this and it bombed, you guys. I just got our Facebook ad shut down, right? Like we are failing big today. And instead of like hiding from that and feeling terrible about it and, wanting to never try anything else again, we're going to go big and we're going to be like, that is amazing. Well done for you, right? And I want you guys to do that too. The faster you can fail, the faster you get what you want, right? So it's such a counterintuitive thing. We are taught, and I'm like, this makes me super mad because you go to school, right? And let's say you take, like we had, my son was working on a math assignment last night, and there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And if you get the wrong answer, you get a bad grade. And that's like the end, right? There's no encouragement to try things and fail. Right? They don't say, what did you learn by, getting this math problem wrong? That doesn't happen. And it's not the teacher's fault because the teacher's hands are tied. It's not the school's fault. It's just the way that school works. And it really bugs me. Like I'm really passionate about this because we are conditioned to avoid failure going through school. But then you get into the real world and you can't do anything without failing. You can't have a job without being willing to fail. You can't have relationships without being willing to try things and have them not work out, right? So I really think it's so backwards, when we go through school because you get a grade, right? And the ones that get the A's, those are the ones that did it right. Well, how about the kid who got a C and who's learning and who learned, okay, now I know what doesn't work. And now next time I'm going to do it better. No, he's just like, oh, you got to see, like, too bad for you, right? There's no celebration of failure. And I think this is such a mistake. And I think we really need to flip that around and just go all in on that. And that's why we're doing that inside of my business. And I want you guys to do that too, right? So the people that have the most success are the ones that have the most failures. And so we got to go big. We got to go all in. All right, what do you think about that? Let me know. I'm going to catch up on your comments here. Maintenance gets easier the more I declutter. Yeah, right? You're learning. Absolutely. We could use the kids' mistakes in reading to go to the correct way. Yeah, absolutely. It is a vicious cycle. Absolutely. Julie says, I'm depressed and my house is a mess and that it makes me too depressed to do anything about it. That just makes me more depressed and I get nothing done. Absolutely. So Julie, here's the thing. I want to be like, I'm going to try and clean up and see what happens. And it's probably not going to work the first time. And I'm going to be like, yes, you did it. Gold star for trying something, even if it doesn't work out, right? Because now I know what doesn't work. And I'm just getting stronger, right? This is how we get stronger. You do not get stronger if you do not try things. And it's not fun. And, your brain is not going to want you to do it. It's going to be like, your house is a mess. Why are you doing this? This is too hard. It didn't work last time, right? This is all the thoughts that we have. And so you have to be the one that says, I know it didn't work last time. That's okay. I'm figuring this out. Now I know how to pace myself. Now I know how to, maybe work a little bit harder. Now I know how to do things a little differently. And we learn from mistakes. Again, we do not learn when everything goes perfectly, right? If your kid is taking a spelling test and they get an A, those words were ridiculously easy and they didn't learn anything and it was a waste of their time. Okay, so I really want you guys to embrace this, go all in on failure. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you? Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so let me know. Okay, I'm going to recap, but before I do that, I want to know from you, what are you going to try? What failure are you going to pursue? Let me know in the comments. What are you going to do? And then come back and try that and then let me know what happened. Okay, I want to know because we got to go big on this. Right? If we can create a culture where this is actually celebrated and we high five each other when we screw stuff up, right? Then what could that do for you? how could that change your life if you were like actually pursuing failure instead of avoiding, instead of hiding from it, night and day, right? Like I'm telling my kids this all the time. I'm like, we have to just go big. It's totally fine with me if you don't get an A, because I want to know that you're working. I don't want to know that you're perfect. I want to know that you're learning and that you're learning how to persevere. So much better to be able to persevere than it is to be perfect. Because guess what? Perfect is not a thing. So stop trying to be perfect. Okay. A little fired up today. I'm kind of mad at Facebook. You guys just like pray for me that Facebook, like we fix that all out. It'll be fun. It's going to be fun. Okay. So to recap, number one, realize it's going to happen. It's not a question of if. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to survive that mistake. It's totally fine. Human beings make mistakes. Okay, that's first. Number two, normalize and neutralize. It's normal to make mistakes. And when we neutralize them, we just say, okay, these are the facts. I have laundry to put away, right? That's a fact. What's not a fact is my laundry basket exploded, right? That's got all kinds of judgment mixed in. So just what are the facts? Let's neutralize the situation, right? And then number three, know that it doesn't mean anything about you. The facts, they only tell a story that you create. We are imagining these stories in our heads. They don't actually exist, right? The fact that your house looks like a tornado hit, that is not a fact. That is a thought, and it is totally optional, okay? And then pursue that. Pursue all of that failure. Go big or go home, and realize that if you want to be successful, you got to do it because of your failures, not in spite of them. All right. That's what I have for you today, everyone. Share this out because we have no Facebook ads. So tell your friends, and I'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.